The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to the Raess Success Show, where we aim to highlight inspiring individuals and their journeys to success. I'm your host on this show. My name is Gehad. Throughout the show, dear listeners, if you have any questions or comments, or if you would like to ask the guest any questions, please feel free to send those in 0779 481822. Our guest today is Raees Sayed, who's the founder of Ummazing. He will be sharing with us today, inshallah, what Ummazing is and why it was created, as well as a few of the hurdles in starting something like this with no tech experience. Raees will also be sharing with us the mission of Ummazing moving forward, inshallah. Raees, Jazakallah khair for accepting my invite to be with us today in the show, and welcome to the Raess Success. How are you doing, Raees?
Well, yeah, Jazakallah for having me, and I'm doing absolutely fantastically. How are you doing?
Great, alhamdulillah, I'm good. As you can see, I'm very cold, so I'm trying to keep myself very warm here.
Layers on as well, got my layers on.
Yeah, subhanAllah, it's getting quite cold these days. So, Raees, mashallah, when I came across your platform, I just wanted to invite you to speak about what motivated you to start it. But first of all, if you can tell us what Ummazing is and why it was created and why this specific name, which I found really interesting and quite fascinating.
Awesome. No, thank you for having me on the platform. The work that you guys do on this platform, may Allah put a lot of barakah in it. It helps our community massively. So for the work that we do at Ummazing, the name comes from, I mean, I can't even claim it. I have to give my brother credit for this one. But the name comes from the word ummah and Ummazing. And the idea here is that there are, I'd say, hundreds of thousands of business owners in the UK that are Muslim owned or Muslim friendly. And when working alone, they're doing a fantastic job. And I would say that they are amazing with an A. But the idea of having Ummazing with a U is when we bring together our community and work together as an ummah to keep that pound within our community and lift one another up. That is when we really strive to become Ummazing. And I think that having a mentality that brings together the pound within our community and really, really uplift each other with every transaction and relationship that we make, I think is a very long-term goal that can't be achieved overnight, but it's certainly something that we want to strive towards so that people, even after our time, have a much, much easier time in terms of the work that they do. So that's where the name really comes from. In terms of why we started Ummazing, it kind of comes from a sort of personal experience that I had growing up. So I come from a mixed race family. My mother is a revert, and growing up, I grew up in an area that was relatively non-Muslim. So it would take me an extra 45 minutes to an hour to find halal food or to go to the masjid, for example, for Jummah. Now, for me, growing up, that was totally normal. I knew absolutely nothing different. And what would happen is at school, I was usually the only, for example, brown person or ethnic person, let alone the only Muslim in class. And of course, a lot's changed since then. We're talking, a good 10 years now. But fast forward to my time at University of Leicester, and for any of your listeners that have actually been to Leicester, it's a really, really multicultural place, mashallah. And what I found was there were Muslim-owned and Muslim-friendly businesses, but what was really intriguing was not every business that was catering for our needs from a halal perspective were Muslim-owned. I thought it was really nice how integrated it was. So I did my 3 years at university. I met some fantastic people that then became part of the team who are much, much smarter than me. But what would happen was after those 3 years, it was very anticlimactic. I got back to where I was. Things hadn't really changed too much. And I just said to myself, there must be a better way to be able to work with one another and to buy from businesses that we know are either smaller or bigger, but certainly from within our community. And that's where Ummazing came. Whether I had experience on how to do that or not, it was a requirement I thought that needed to be done.
And apologies, I've been pronouncing as Ummazing, referring to Ummah, so it's Ummazing, right?
Well, I think it's that's what we like to have a little bit of also a differentiation of how people say it. So happy for anyone to say it that way, so long as we emphasize the ummah. That's 100% right.
Alhamdulillah, that's great. Alhamdulillah. And when did you actually start it? And how is the
That's a
transition from where you started it until now?
Yeah, spot on. So I think I graduated from uni about 2018. And I got this idea in my last year because I became really sort of integrated with University of Leicester ISOC. The company I kept, honestly, it's so important, but they really set the standard high for me in terms of things that I wanted to achieve and the things that they were doing. And the idea came to me in my last year of university. But then I moved into the family business, which, if any of the listeners have ever worked in a family business, it's not like, a normal 9 to 5. It's a real commitment. It's livelihood.
Mm.
And I just sat on the idea for a very, very long time. And I'm not a technical person myself. I'm not a developer or a programmer. And I just kind of came up with the idea thinking, well, what can I do to start? I went up to developers in Yorkshire. They were, quoting me hundreds of thousands of pounds to get an app going at the time. And
Mm.
I just thought to myself, well, look, how can I start this from my bedroom?
Mm.
And then I think we got to about 2020. I was doing all the branding. My brother had claimed, the name, managed to get the domain for 99p, alhamdulillah. And I just thought to myself, look, I can start something. I've got to learn on YouTube, and all the resources are in front of me. So I just did it outside of my hours on the weekends, and created what we call an MVP, which is a minimum viable product, something that I could get out to the world, and just see if it worked and see if it stuck. If the community got behind it, if something was there, if we build, will they come? And alhamdulillah, 10 businesses signing up turned into 100 businesses signing up, and then 600 businesses signing up, and then 2,000 businesses signing up. And that's when I realized that there is something behind this when it comes to that. And a lot's changed since then. We were a goods-based marketplace back then, and today we're a service-based platform, but it's given us a lot to work with and a really good understanding of what our community needs.
Mashallah, that's amazing. When you said, mashallah, it's 2000, that's amazing, mashallah. So that's one of the wins. Could you tell us more of the wins that, that Ummazing has gone through since the start until now, and some
Yeah.
of the hurdles, including what you mentioned, not having, tech background, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Definitely. I mean, let's start with the positives. So, on our at the time of building, we had no idea how to manage that many businesses and try and
Mm.
keep it within our 9 to 5 and do it at a time where online e-commerce was really, really shooting up because of COVID. So we timed it quite well, and I would say that was one of the positives as well.
Mm.
Um, but in terms of one of the wins, I got really lucky that Islam Channel picked it up
Mm.
on like the second day of launch or something, and said, do you want to do a national TV piece on one of their segments? And we took it on. That gave us some really good coverage. I mean, I did that one in my bedroom. It was totally underprepared for. It was not great at all. So, any advice for your listeners is to definitely make sure you choose a neutral location without boxes in the background. But, when
But
it
I
came
didn't
to
stop you, right? So I just wanted to point that
no,
out.
no, definitely. It didn't stop me. I mean, it might look like I was packing or unpacking from IKEA, but it definitely didn't stop me. But in terms of other successes, I could probably talk about metrics in terms of how many monthly users we hit, and I think that's really important for your average business. But considering we're a community-based business model, what I would probably say our biggest success is really integrating ourselves with business owners and people within businesses from within our community. It really has highlighted how entrepreneurial the Muslim community is. Whether it be in weddings and events, whether it be in financial or legal, whether it be in the most niche industries, our community is dotted around everywhere in the most some desolate areas of the UK, and they're still doing a fantastic job. And
Mm.
I would say one of our biggest wins is being able to be involved with their growth, and be able to provide some form of platform to help them grow. And that's one of the things that really drives us to be able to continue doing what we do every day and do it with a lot of determination and passion. Um, So that would be what I'd say our biggest win to date is to manage to get that many Muslim friendly businesses. And I'm very careful of saying Muslim friendly businesses because yes, whilst a majority, and I would say a good 90% on the platform are Muslim owned, we do like to reward those businesses that aren't Muslim owned but do cater for our community and go the extra mile, because without them, we wouldn't have a more inclusive community as a result. And that's my experience growing up as well in a mixed race sort of background. I think it's really important. So I'd say that was definitely some of the biggest wins there. But in terms of the challenges, I mean, I'll touch on the one that I mentioned previously, and I think it's really important for anyone listening. If you've not got an experience and an idea that you've got, I would say don't let that one hold you back. And a lot of people will say that, and especially if it's tech, you might look at it and think, well, how on earth do I develop a platform of software and get people behind it and make it good enough and all the rest of it? But 9 times out of 10, when you've got a good enough idea, people will get behind it. And you don't necessarily have to have that set of skills to be able to do it. I mean, to give you an example of how we're set up, yes, we're a software-based company. However, I could not code one line at all. If you asked me today, I would have no clue how to do that. But can my team? Yeah, they're fantastic at it. And they buy into the concept. They understand the mission in what we're trying to do. And I think one of the most important things for anyone outside or listening to this talk is to make sure that you build a team that's smarter than you. You should not be the smartest person in the room ever, and you should always be learning from others. And that for me was one of the challenges. At the beginning, I truly believed I could do everything by myself. And that for me was a massive learning curve. And I think the quicker you can get over that hurdle, the better. The other hurdle we had as well on top of that is, working within our community, there's a spectrum, isn't there? There's Islam is so varied in terms of how people practice it, how people represent it. And in general, from within our community and outside of our community, and trying to create something that is all encompassing and tries to incorporate all elements of that spectrum in a way that is respectful, in a way that adheres to the religious requirements that we know Islam to require, was difficult. It really was difficult. And I think unless you are all on the same page as a team and as a brand, that can be really difficult to make sure that you get right. And that's been something that we've been trying to overcome for a while. And alhamdulillah, I do believe that we've managed to get around that. And then I'd say the third difficulty, and I think this could be the case for, or challenge, shall I say, could be the case for any business, not necessarily just in tech, was deciding whether you wanted to go for some form of funding or whether you wanted to bootstrap it. And for anyone that doesn't know what bootstrapping is, it's just basically taking the mindset that anything you earn will be reinvested back into the business to grow organically rather than taking outside funding. And for me, that was one of the challenges. I mean, I'm 26 years old at the moment, and you hear a lot about businesses that have taken on, or startups that have taken on funding and grown to fantastic heights, mashallah. But sometimes you can get caught up in the glitz and glamour of that sort of stuff, and it can take away from the purpose of why you're trying to do what you're trying to do, or the direction that you're trying to go into. And I think I had a really good team that was able to make a decision collaboratively and collectively that said, you know what, we want to go in this direction. Let's not get too carried away and focus on making sure we deliver value for our customers and for the wider community. So I would say those 3 challenges were probably some of the biggest ones. But once we've kind of figured out or got our feet under the table with that, we've managed to see a lot more growth for sure.
MashaAllah, that's amazing. MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair for all that you've shared, that inshallah our dear listeners will find beneficial as well in terms of overcoming challenges, as well as, not stopping themselves if they don't have all the experiences in something. And I'm just going to quickly just remind our dear listeners that we have Raess with us on the show today, who's the founder of Ummazing, which is a platform for Muslim service providers. And he's sharing with us today that what Ummazing is and why it was created, as well as a few of the hurdles starting something like this with no tech experience. And he's also going to be sharing with us the mission of Ummazing moving forward. And I loved what you shared there. Although I said it's a service for Muslim service providers, what you've sorry, it's a platform, not service. What I found quite interesting there is that you said that you're not stopping just you are including non-Muslims, but who offer Muslims a service, which is amazing, mashallah. So you're not stopping them. But I also was wondering, is it just for services or is it for products as well?
That's a really good question. So, to roll back a little bit, when we first started, we were a goods-based or products-based marketplace, and I would probably liken that to like a sort of halal Amazon without really, really fast delivery.
Yeah.
But we got to a point where we looked at our sort of customer base and we said, yeah, that's great, and it's turning over a decent amount in terms of helping businesses take it to the next level, and especially, and this is still something that sort of is a running theme for businesses, whether they're service or product based. But a lot of them do not have a dominant or even, an entry level digital footprint, whether that be a website, whether that be even like an Instagram store or something like that. But their ideas are truly fantastic. They have really, really good products and services that they need to sell. And sometimes these businesses just need a little bit of a helping hand, and it doesn't need to cost them a bomb. In fact, it can be free, and that's what we try to do. So we started off as a goods-based business, and we saw significant growth. And then we realized to ourselves as well, the services were being missed out. Now, yes, we have focused on services in the immediate sense of relaunching Ummazing as this platform that you see today. But certainly we will be looking at goods-based businesses, especially without getting too political, with everything that we're seeing happening at the moment. We want to make sure it's as easy as possible for people to be able to spend their pound socially and ethically consciously and comprehensively. We want them to have choice and accessibility when it comes to using our platform, not just to think, well, I wish they had, for example, products that are related to what I'm looking for. So certainly, I would say in the next 8 months, you'll probably see products being listed on our platform for sure.
Great, amazing. And so that's one of the developments, inshallah, you're going to add. And
Oh, yeah, definitely.
one of the things that maybe you'll be addressing in your mission moving forward, which inshallah we will move into probably after the break. But something also that you've mentioned, which I think businesses find quite challenging, or some of them, I'm not going to speak for all of them, is that you've created a team. How did you go about creating a team and finding the right members to add to the team? Because as you said, you try to do it all by yourself, For example, I'm that kind of person. I try to kind of do it all. And it's that trust factor as well. So how did you go about doing this? Inshallah, our dear listeners who are listening can benefit from that as well.
Inshallah. I mean, it's probably, I know I mentioned it as part of the challenges, it's probably the most challenging thing. But once you've got a sort of basis for it, it really does open up the floodgates of growth. So, like I said, for me, I came in really sort of arrogant, thinking that I could just do it by myself, and it wasn't the case. I quickly learned that my skills are certainly limited. And I was really lucky that I would say, other than paying as much as I did to go to university, one of the biggest benefits of going to university is a really strange one, which I would say is networking. Finding the right people that happened for me to be my friends. Now, my developers, for example, I did not know Zam and Raees straight away. I knew Zamir relatively well. I wouldn't say we knew each other brilliantly. And Raees, who's also my back-end developer and one of the most clever people I've ever met, I knew him as a friend of a friend. And it came to a point where I was trying to do everything, in-house, trying to do everything a million times slower, that I said to someone, does anyone know someone that could do this? And they said, well, why don't you go back and have a think about who you've met? And I just thought to myself, well, hang on, who did computer science? And then I thought to myself, actually, I do remember people doing computer science. And I thought, let me just bite the bullet and ask the question. And I got to the point where, Zam was coming on board as a sort of consultant. He was helping out. Then Raees was coming on as a consultant, and they were helping out. And that was originally on an invoicing basis. And I done a YouTube video on this, which is being released, I think maybe next week or so. But the sort of takeaway from this was sometimes you don't just want to incentivize people to buy into what you're doing straight away by a financial means or even on an equity basis. sometimes you have to sort of do a little bit of work with them to understand whether you work well together. Now, Sam and Raees, I worked with on a financial basis for maybe 2 or 3 months until, I'll be very honest, I ran out of money. I had nothing left. And I said to myself, I mean, you've got to bear in mind at that time I was like a 22-year-old trying to afford all of this. And I said to myself, I said to God, to be fair, I asked for help, what can I do? And I just thought, let me ask and see if they're interested in coming on on an equity basis and a part of the team. And before I could even ask, they asked me. And they said, oh, by the way, we really like what you're doing. Would you be interested in us joining the team properly? And from there, it's been sort of a snowball effect in the fact of they have not now been on a transactional basis saying, yeah, Raees, we've completed your work that we're invoicing for. They're now coming up with ideas that I wouldn't come up with, which I think is fantastic. So it is hard to find a team, but I do think it's worth it, and it does take time. But ask around, speak to people that you've got in your network, and they'll refer you to people who know people, and go to networking events. You'll find people that that you kind of get on with, and LinkedIn is fantastic for it as well.
And that was smart of you as well to kind of look into university, because then you've got the different, fields in the university. So just about selecting the person from the right field.
I couldn't get their grades, otherwise I would have been on that one as well.
No, mashallah, that's great. And that kind of can relate it to the work that I do in terms of we didn't have a chat about that, but I also do, I don't know if you've heard of the Myers-Briggs, but it's more of a prophetic model of the Myers-Briggs, because I know I've registered on your platform, but I don't know if you've seen the part that I do. So it's more of the prophetic model of the Myers-Briggs and how the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used to place each of the Sahabas in the right places that is suited for their personalities.
Definitely.
So that it kind of adds to what you've said about not trying to do everything by yourself. Although we try to, it's not going to be so successful because we have certain strengths and other people have certain strengths. It's about utilizing your strength in the right place and then utilizing the strength of others in the right places as well. And that kind of creates that community as well, and that unity and that support of one another to produce something for the ummah as well. So I love, mashallah, the kind of approach that you've had there. I'm just going to quickly remind our dear listeners is that we have Raees Sayed on the show with us today, who's the founder of Ummazing, and he's sharing with us today what Ummazing is, why it was created, as well as a few of the hurdles starting something like this with no tech experience, and mashallah, how he managed to overcome those challenges. And Raees, after the break, inshallah, will be sharing with us the mission of Ummazing moving forward. We've got a few minutes before the break, so I'll just ask one other question here. Is Ummazing your full-time, or are you doing anything else as well on the side? And if you are, how do you juggle between everything?
That's a really good question. I think I touched on a little bit just on a previous question. Now, I do work in the family business full-time.
We still do that, inshallah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that one is very, very close to my heart. It's a water treatment business that, in and of its own mission, is sort of changing the world, which is really, really important. Now, Ummazing came slightly later than joining IWS, and for me, I do believe that the team is strong enough to work it the way in which we're doing at the moment, but I believe that when the demand hits a certain level, it will require me to go full-time on Ummazing. But as I say, one of the benefits of having a fantastic team is that they really can hold their own. They don't need me to sort of micromanage or anything like that. But certainly, inshallah, the aim is to definitely get to Ummazing full-time in the next 6 months, inshallah.
Inshallah. And for the meantime, how are you finding having to kind of work on this and work on that? It can be a bit of challenging, right? And
it's a little bit, yeah. You kind of have to wear more than one hat. It is really, really difficult. But it's rewarding, because anything worth doing is hard. And I could not do what I'm doing at Ummazing had I have not learned anything that I've learned at IWS. I mean, the exposure and the experience that I've gained at the family business, because I've been sort of thrown into the deep end and I've not had to sort of start from zero. I've had exposure to management meetings that where your contribution actually you can see it in place. You're not being filtered out by other areas or other echelons of the hierarchy, which is really, really important. And it's taught me every skill that I needed to do to be able to get to where I am. I don't believe I'm ever finished learning. So there's still lots for me to do and lots for me to be able to push towards amazing to help grow the community that we're looking to grow.
Ameen, inshallah. May Allah grant you success in it, inshallah. And we're just going to go very shortly for a break. So I'm just going to remind our dear listeners is that we're having Raees on the show today with us, who's the founder of Ummazing. And inshallah, he will be sharing after the break the mission of Ummazing moving forward. And what we've been talking about so far is the creation of Ummazing, why it was created, how it's giving so far, who it aims to serve, and so on. Dear questions, dear listeners, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to send those inshallah after the break on 0779 481822. So, dear listeners, this is Inspire FM Luton on 105.1. Inshallah, we'll begin for a very short break. So do stay tuned, inshallah, for more to hear about Ummazing from Raess, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Atif Nawaz. Listen to Inspire FM shows in your time by heading over to inspirefm.org or listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome back to the Raess to Success show. We have Raees Sayed with us today, who's the founder of Ummazing, and he's sharing with us today why Ummazing was created. Well, that's what he shared before the break, and he also shared a few of the hurdles starting something like this with no tech experience, as well as now inshallah we'll be moving on talking about the mission of Ummazing moving forward. Dear listeners, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to send those on 0779 481822. So, Raees, mashallah, jazakallah khair for all the amazing stuff that you've shared before the break in terms of why Ummazing was created, what it's all about, some of the wins, some of the challenges, and how you went about creating a team. And now, inshallah, we'll be moving on to talking about the mission of Ummazing. So, if you can tell us more about the mission moving forward.
Brilliant. Firstly, thank you for that opportunity to go through that. I really do appreciate it. So in terms of the mission for Ummazing going forward, I mean, the overarching mission is to empower every Muslim that we work with. And that might be from a consumer perspective, that might be from a business perspective, but the idea here is for every consumer to have access to, well, they have their consumer needs championed, whether that be through accessibility, whether that be through transparency, or whether that be through just general choice in which they are able to choose for the best supplier that they're looking for. Now, when it comes to businesses, we're looking at unlocking the 4.1 million Muslims in the UK and indeed the wider world, inshallah, and growing in the community. But the overarching mission that we're looking to do here comes back from the experience I had growing up in the Jewish community. They had a very circular economy. You know, everything is kept within their own community, and that is to the greatest degree quite admirable in the sense of how that the pound that we earn, can be used to better our brother or our sister within our community. So when I spend my pound with, let's say, Inspire FM, I want to know that Inspire FM has been uplifted to be able to provide a better service and quality service moving forward, and provide better service for me. Now, when I know that that's happening, you then can do better, and you can then become a better company moving forward and to take it to new heights. Now, I want that, and I know the team want that for every business within our community. So we don't want any business within our community or any consumer within our community to feel that they are not being championed. And the best way to do that with such a large community, such a strong ummah, is to make sure that we work together to ensure that we are in charge of how we uplift each other. And personally, I think there are many different ways of doing this, but one of the most sort of direct ways and approaches of ensuring that this happens is starting with where we spend our pound. And now more than ever, we've obviously seen how important that is. So yeah, that is Ummazing's overarching mission, is to empower every Muslim, or as we like to say, to uplift our ummah with every click. That is the idea there.
That's amazing, mashallah. And I think at this current time as well, where a lot of mashallah Muslims are wanting to support Muslim businesses, I think this is just perfect timing, inshallah, to kind of explore the platform that you have and see what Muslim businesses are out there so that we can together uplift the ummah, mashallah. And you made a really good point there where we can support one another so that, inshallah, we together can rise as an ummah. You've mentioned that it's UK. Is it only UK based, or are you looking to kind of go international in the future?
Definitely. So we at the moment our team is based in the UK, and the beautiful thing about software is it wouldn't be too difficult to go international because all you have to do is add another flag, and you can get going from there. But we've just looked at starting a partnership with Ummazing USA, and they will be catering for the entirety of North America. They will be launching in January, and we are having conversations with Amazing Spain. And New Zealand and Australia as well. So, we're just trying to get our feet under the table with the UK situation. But, the more publicity we get, the more people we talk to, the more we realize this is not just a local problem that we're trying to solve. It's actually a global problem that we're trying to solve. And, alhamdulillah, people are looking at us as if we're the right people to do it. So we have to work collaboratively, and we don't know every single market, but we can certainly try to make sure that every Muslim across the globe, certainly the Western world, ensure that their consumer and business needs are championed, inshallah.
Oh, that's amazing, mashallah. And you said in January, is that next month?
Yeah, literally. So we're working on. We have calls every week with America. It's really strange, actually. We've got the sort of accent differences, and you've got all the different ways and time zone differences, and all the rest of it. But we've been working really, really stringently with them, and they're a fantastic team over there, based in Silicon Valley, and they are going to be looking at really growing the market over there. And I would argue they've got a much harder job than we've got in the UK. They've got like what we've got times 10 or times 100. So, more power to them. And what I really do want to sort of let the listeners know is that the approach that we've had so far with certain businesses like that is not competitive, in the sense of they could have looked at us and said, oh, we're going to be a competitor, let's just go into America. But, one of the beautiful things about it was they looked at it and thought, well, how can we work together? How can we make sure that we combine our efforts correctly so that we really can have a fantastic impact in what we're trying to do? And that, for me, sold it straight away. The team were ready to make that transition into a sort of global movement. For us, it's a really nice step forward. So we're going to continue to keep pushing the value added into the UK and into Europe. But we know we're in safe hands when it comes to across the pond as well.
So, mashallah, that's great progress. Mashallah, what a great start of the year, mashallah. So that's amazing. Alhamdulillah that we're having the interview at this time of the year, so others can hear about this, inshallah, and the progress of that. And I love what you mentioned about not seeing it as a competition, but as supporting one another as unity. Can you say a few words about this? Because I think that's quite important for the Muslims as well to help us to kind of unite together and work together rather than, of course, there are competitions in business, but in terms of seeing it as more of a support. And that kind of reminds me, there's something, I can't remember what time it was, but it was sometime, I don't think it was at the Prophet's time, but basically what happened, there was few businesses, and one of them was doing very well, and they're right next to each other, and the other one didn't have any sales that day. And there was a client who came to the person who sold quite well, and he wanted to buy something from him, and he actually told him, why don't you go to my colleague or my friend next door? He's selling exactly the same thing and he didn't make any sales today. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Instead of him thinking, actually, no, I'll just make more money, he actually wanted to support his brother in Islam. So that for me is something huge. And I feel like this is what uplifts us, the ummah altogether. And it shows a kind of mannerism that we should be having Islamically. So can you speak a little bit more about this? Because I think that's something that will benefit us all, inshallah, hearing more about it.
Well, what I find really interesting is I've done a few sort of podcasts and talks, and one of the running themes is actually what you're mentioning here is the stigmas of working within our community and viewing things as too competitive. I think is probably the most negative way I could put that, by the way, But I think it's important that I say it that way because a lot of people, when we were first starting Amazing, and even to this day, we still get, Instagram DMs that will say a similar thing, where it's almost a defeatist attitude where some people, and this will be in any community, but certainly we don't label these types of people as amazing for having this types of mentality. Now, what the general consensus among this type of community will be something like, do you truly believe it will work because the community won't come together, or we look at each other too competitively, or so and so over there wants to have more than so and so over here, and it's not a collaborative culture. Is typically the consensus that we get from this community when they're speaking. Now, I would argue that is the case with any community. People are just wired differently. It's just how it is. Now, we don't come up with stigmas externally for this sort of thing. This comes from within our community. People are, you and I are asking this question, and we are within our community. Now, Amazing aims, and it might sound idealistic, but Amazing aims to get rid of that by working together to ensure that each and every business has its own, for example, amazing offer. And it's not all about just sales. It's about uplifting the next person that you're working with. Like the example that you gave there was spot on. We shouldn't be looking at each other to say, well, how can I make more than you? So long as everyone's eating, there is a big enough cake. And that is what Amazing is about. There is a big enough cake here for everyone to indulge in and to have a piece of. Now, when we have people like that think in that sort of mentality, more power to them to do well locally, to do what they're doing and to tick their boxes. But for the ones that have that expansive mindset that say to themselves, how can I help my wider community? They are truly going to be the ones that can take it to the next level. And they're the ones that we put time and effort into to ensure that we can actually take it to the next level and uplift our community with every click. But I do think from an educational point of view, it would be naive to think that problem can be eradicated if we all hold hands. I think that there is a lot of work to be done. But that's why we're here. If no one moves the needle will never get to where it needs to get to. And inshallah, for our kids, for our grandchildren, whatever it is, we will be in a better place with that mindset. Hopefully that mindset will be eradicated, inshallah.
Inshallah. And it just requires each one of us to do our part, right?
100%. That's exactly right.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair for that. And I'm just going to remind our dear listeners, just in case anybody joined us lately, is that we have Raess with us on the show today, who's the founder of Ummazing, which is a platform for to provide Muslim services, and also, as Raess said, that there is non-Muslim services out there, but providing support and services to the Muslim community. Raess has been sharing with us today what Ummazing is, why it was created, as well as some of the hurdles that they face, as well as how he overcome them. And Raess is now sharing his mission of Ummazing moving forward, and the team as well together with him. And we just talked about, the importance of uniting together and working together as an ummah to support one another. So inshallah we can move forward together. And actually, just to remind the listeners as well, before moving into the next question, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to send those on 0779 481822. Now, Raess, I was interested to know more about, and if our dear listeners are sitting there wondering, how can they sign up if they want to kind of register as a business on your platform? How can they do that?
Yeah, spot on. So what we've done purposely is we've made it free. So that's number one. There's no friction here to be able to say, how do I sign up? I can't afford to sign up. We want to make sure that no one in our community feels left out. So we've created a freemium sort of business model. Now, locally, you can benefit from signing up for free. If you're in more of a competitive sector, such as, for example, weddings and events, legal and financial, you may find benefit in being able to pay for a paid plan. What we also do is we add ancillary services such as digital marketing, general mentorship with our network of business owners and leaders that we work with. But we're really looking at ways in which we can uplift businesses that come on, whether it be on a sort of free of charge basis to make sure that value is always added, or on a premium basis that we mentioned previously. Now, it's very simple to be able to sign up. The website that you're looking for is ummazing.com. That's ummazing.com. And when you head over to ummazing.com, you'll see a section there that says sign up, and it should default you to a business sign up page. There we'll be looking just for a little bit of brief information, and from there you'll be able to be taken to the next stages to set up your business and be able to get live on the website. Usually reviews take about 24 hours to 48 hours, and inshallah, any questions that any of your listeners have, especially if they're business owners, more than happy to accommodate with. And the other thing to mention as well, we're constantly adding new categories and sectors onto the directory. We can't claim to be the most expansive one without more businesses coming on from various different corners of categories in the world. So the more niche categories we can get, the better. We're more than happy to accommodate, and we'd love to be able to help any businesses, whether it be in the local Luton community or indeed the wider parts of the UK, inshallah.
That's great. Jazakallah khair for sharing this. And I must add as well that my experience of contacting your team has been amazing. It's like, wow, there was tons. It was so quick, and I was like, wow.
No, jazakallah for that. I'd like to say that's all pretty much on them. You know, they're a fantastic team, and they're really, really dedicated to making sure that businesses from our community feel like they're special and championed with their needs.
Oh, definitely, mashallah. So this is just to let our dear listeners, mashallah, as it is, there is the option of a free service, signing up for free, then it's worth, inshallah, putting all businesses out there. So inshallah, the businesses out there can be supported by having that platform, and as I said, bringing it together to supporting Muslim business owners, inshallah, and businesses out there to help the ummah together to be uplifted, inshallah. So at the moment it's for services, and when did you say that inshallah, you will start adding the service for products as well?
So we'll probably look in the next 8 months. We have already started the process, and obviously having run the Good Space Marketplace in the past on a different platform, we have a really good basis to work from. And given the current climate, we want to make sure our consumers have so much to be able to pick from. So I would say within the next 8 months, as a maximum, we would be saying that we have fully fledged sectors ready for products as well as just services.
Mashallah, that's great. There's a question that I have here, but I would like to leave it right to the end to end with. But before I get to that, perhaps we can talk a little bit more about, what's your journey like starting from at the start, being a university student to where you are now? Did you ever think you will get that far, mashallah, going to the US, Spain and Australia, as I mentioned, and so on, inshallah, in the future? Did you ever think that you would get that far? And what was, the journey like from starting with nothing to, mashallah, where it is now?
I think even as you just said that there, I just had a realization that just kicked in. That's happened. No, subhanAllah, it is a bit surreal because when I think this will be the case for any of your listeners, and if you haven't started your own business or been involved in a business, certainly it's something that you can take away from this talk, if anything. Don't underestimate or discredit your idea. I started from the beginning saying to myself, well, why would my developers not want to work as consultants? They won't want to come on to work on an equity basis. They won't buy in on the idea. That was stage number one. Suddenly they bought in and really liked it, and suddenly I wasn't paying invoices on a monthly basis, and I had a collaborative team. The next one was, well, how am I going to get onto TV? And then suddenly, Islam Channel and even the likes of your platform see the value in what we do and say, viewers and listeners would like to hear a little bit more. And then we go to other elements where, and you got to bear in mind, we're 26 years old. I think I might actually be the oldest one on the team. And, when you're dealing with people that are older, when they're business owners and they're seasoned professionals as well, you almost get imposter syndrome. You're talking to them as if it's me you really want to talk to, but I don't think it really hit us until we got that email from America that said, we've got a similar idea, we want to do it, and the ages there are, you're talking about 42, 35 years old, and all older than us. I think the youngest person on that team maybe 29 years old. I know I always talk about age, but it's the easiest way to sort of quantify the difference from where we truly believed we are versus where we are today in reality. And I do think we've come a long way, and I don't think, and this is probably true of many business owners, that we stop enough to think about what we've actually done. And we're talking in December at the end of the year now. It's probably a good time to do it. To say, pat on the back, and mashallah, we've done a lot, and inshallah, we need to take stock of that and then work on how we grow into the next steps. But truly, I did not believe we would get to this stage. I just really got my head down and thought, how far can we take this? And there's been much cleverer people that have given me even better ideas as we've gone along and pivoted. And I'm so grateful for the direction that Allah has given us to be able to follow it and to stick to the journey and to not get sidetracked with things that look shinier or a little bit more immediate. We know this is a long-term process, but it's been 3 to 4 years so far, and inshallah we don't plan on stopping anytime soon until we make a really, really positive impact for the rest of the community.
Ameen. Mashallah, although it's been just a few years, mashallah, it has developed so much, and as you said that you didn't think it would get that far, and inshallah we'll get even further, inshallah. And I'm just finding it, quite fascinating as well that you all are a team of young people, mashallah. And you said you're the oldest, right? 26, and the team is younger, mashallah. It's like, nothing can stop people. So those dear listeners who are listening to us, no matter what your age is, you can do something, inshallah. And it started just with an idea, as you've mentioned, and it developed further and further. And that's where having that, tying your camel and having tawakkul on Allah. And you didn't think you'll get that. You didn't think you'll get that far. And subhanallah, although you didn't, even seek out some opportunities, it came all the way to you. When I found out about it, I contacted you. As you said, Islam Channel reached out to you as well. So sometimes it's just about making that start and putting that tawakkul on Allah and doing your best. And inshallah, if there is khair in it, then inshallah it will go further and further. So that's amazing. Mashallah, jazakallah khair. Now moving into, actually just to remind our dear listeners, because sometimes some listeners join a bit later, we have Raess with us on the show today, who's the founder of Ummazing, which is providing, services for the Muslim community, and inshallah in 8 months' time, it will also cater for products as well. Raess has been sharing with us today what Ummazing is, what it's about, how it was created, the wins, the challenges, mashallah, the mission moving forward, and great stuff, inshallah, coming up, inshallah, with Ummazing soon. So now, inshallah, if we can move into, and actually, dear listeners, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to send those in 0779 481822. And we have a few minutes before the end of the show. So, Raess, if you can end talking about what advice would you give others about their passions and following their dreams and, whatever they want to do, despite there could be challenges like yourself, for example, you started with no tech experience at all. So although we've been talking about it throughout, is there specific advice to give them to kind of take on the opportunity and move forward and do what they're passionate about rather than just, kind of taking a step back and not taking action on it?
Yeah, really good question, Gehad. So I think I'm going to steal your advice actually on this one. It's to tie your camel, I think is the best way of putting it, because I think there's sort of like a spectrum that people seem to think it's either black or white. So you either go all in and you do everything you want for this business, but some people, can go in there without tying their camel and making sure that, that they're financially looked after, they're mentally looked after, all that sort of stuff. But also there's the other spectrum, the other side of the spectrum, where you say to yourself, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it once I get this part of my job. And, that you wait too long. Now, what I would say is, there's no, and this is advice I would give to anyone, not even just a startup, just any business idea or any idea that you've got, whether even just starting like a YouTube channel or your own, selling your own art on the side, whatever it is, right? Just start is number one, right? Start and deal with what we call an MVP, a minimum viable product. What does that mean? It means get something out there that doesn't look pretty, but has or serves its function so that you can get some feedback on it. Now, 9 times out of 10, that doesn't take a lot to do. You can do that on your weekend. You can do that after work, whatever you're doing, whatever your circumstance. Get that MVP out and ask people, preferably ones that aren't always going to give you positive feedback. Get the ones that are going to be constructive and give it to strangers, Go on LinkedIn. I've done it a million times. Send out messages to people that you believe are going to add value with their feedback and just say, what do you think about this? And 9 times out of 10, given the nature of humans in general, but certainly the natures of Muslims in our community, they want to help. Yeah, and as you quite rightly said, Jihad, it doesn't matter what age you are or where you come from. Just go ahead and do that. It doesn't matter if you're 26 or you're 19 or you're 16. It doesn't matter if you're 46, 50 or 70. I've met people at exhibitions that have had similar ideas to me that are 70. I say more power to them. You're way more experienced than I am doing the similar thing, and clearly you're doing a great job with it. So get feedback, get an MVP out, because that is the only way you're going to know whether your idea is worth doing. Because the amount of people that have messaged me saying, I had a similar idea, or I was going to do this, but I never ended up doing it. Don't be that guy. The only difference between me and them was I ended up doing it. I'm not special. I'm just someone that decided to go all the way with it and got very lucky with the people that I had around me. But you're going to have an idea that you believe will either change your life or someone else's life, or certainly be game-changing in the way of business or just whatever it's doing. Don't be the guy that says, I wish I had done this, because honestly, life is too short, and we've got to understand the things that we're doing have to be for the sake of our community, the sake of Allah. And if it has any positive impact in what we're trying to do for our community, our local community, whatever it is, you shouldn't be the person to not do it. In particular, if you have that skill set. You might not believe you have that skill set, but each and every one of us has value that we can add to our community. Comes back to the ummazing mindset. Genuinely, we all have things we have to give back, and by sitting back, allowing us to be, whether it just be an employee, whether it just be doing your day-to-day work, but by not being amazing or by not being extraordinary, we are cutting ourselves short as a community. So get the MVP out. Ask any stranger that will listen. They will listen and they will feedback. Some will not feedback, but that doesn't matter. Send enough messages out. And don't be the one to say, I wish I had done it. That's my feedback or my advice for someone in a similar situation. If your mindset is going to be, I wish I'd done it, then that's not where you want to be.
Love it, Raees. Jazakallah khair. That has been amazing, and thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing these amazing tips. It is the end of the show, so I'm having to cut it.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Why not tune in to our live stream at inspirefm.org and follow and subscribe to our social media platforms at InspireFM Luton.